Pilots, I'm your product specialist Wesley, and today I am excited to announce that the Freewing twin 70mm SR-71 Blackbird is officially here. This is the finest foam SR-71 to ever come to the market from any manufacturer, and I am extremely excited to show you around this model. So right off the bat, let's just start up on the nose of this aircraft. You're going to notice that it does have the removable nose cone, just like in a lot of the other models we have here at Motion RC. So if you damage this for any reason, just pop it off, pop on a new magnetic nose cone, and you're up and flying. Now, while you're looking at the nose cone, you're also going to notice that the plastic cladding on the front end is all the way down both of the chines, where it's going to be the pointy parts here on the outside. That really helps keep this strong and not get damaged when you're putting it in and out of the car. On the front of that nose cone, you'll also see there is a pitot tube that is removable. It's just friction fit. It will only fit in one direction, so you just kind of spin it until it pops in. Moving back, you're going to see that this model has specific pilot figures made just for the SR-71. Now, in real life, SR-71 pilots had to wear spacesuits. So as you see, Freewing actually modeled them for this aircraft. So the sled drivers look just right up in the front. Now, you're also going to notice all the decals and nomenclatures around the cockpit. Those do need to be applied by the customer when you receive them. There are 3 different graphic options in the box for customers when they get them. These are just water slide decals, super easy to install. Just give yourself about an hour to put all of those decals on. As we move back again, you're going to notice that that plastic cladding from the nose is also carried all the way down the front section of the fuselage. This is to keep it nice. It's going to keep from getting any damage or dents on that really tight spot there. This is a very nice contoured area, just like the real aircraft, but being made out of plastic, it can be a lot thinner than it is if it's made out of foam. Up on the top, as we move back, you're going to see the first of the 2 battery hatches. This first compartment here also has the strobe on the top. Now, the way they've done this is just like in a couple of the other models of late. When you pop that top off, you have the 2 brass receiving points on the top of the canopy that are actually going to pass power from the board internally up to that light. With the hatch off, you can also see that that 6,000 milliamp battery fits in there with no issue. Plenty of room to even go larger if you choose to. Now, the battery bay can also accept a 5100 carbon or a 5,000 milliamp battery from here at Motion RC, so that's up to the customer on what battery they're going to fly, but that is our recommended range. With the top off, you're going to also notice that the plastic armoring has been added all around the battery hatch to keep this looking really sharp. Even with you putting that battery in and out all the time, you're not going to damage that foam putting it in and out of there though, because it's been plastic reinforced. Now, as we move back to the back section of the battery bay, you're going to notice there is a screw. That screw is one of the 3 used to actually separate the nose from the aft section of the fuselage. Right here, you take that screw out, and then on the bottom section of the aircraft, there are 2 additional ones. Once you've removed all 3 of the screws, you can actually slide the forward section of the fuselage off, and then there is a multi-function wing controller board right there. You just unplug that one connector to actually remove it. Then you have the 2 carbon spars inside that actually pass out of the fuselage for guys that need to make this thing shorter. This is almost a 7-foot long model, so I understand if you're going to need a little more room in the car with this one. So as we move back, we're going to come to the second battery compartment. As we open that up, what you're going to see on the stock configuration, like it is where you're flying with 1 battery, you have your blue box in here that's going to control all the functions of the aircraft. You have your gyro, the EGO1, pre-programmed for this aircraft right out of the box. And then it's a great place to also install your receiver in here. Once again, this is completely armored and cladded around the outside, so if you decide to use this as a battery compartment to run 2 batteries, you can easily do that. And if you're taking them in and out, you're not going to damage this compartment either. It does come with a strap already affixed in there for customers that decide to use this as a battery compartment. So now let's talk about these cones on the front of the intakes. Now, just like the real aircraft these were modeled, they are plastic cladded on the front ends and on the intakes of the EDF themselves. These are all plastic in here to keep those from getting damaged. Now, moving back just a little bit further, one of the absolute coolest things to be added to any jet as of late, you have the magnetic hatch that can be opened by hand, revealing your parachute. Now the parachute just needs to be put on any 2-position switch you choose. For me, I used a momentary switch, and I want to make sure it's away from anywhere I'm going to accidentally hit in flight. There is no safety override as it comes out of the box, so if you hit that thing in flight, that parachute's coming out. So make sure you either set up a 2-step arming sequence, or, like I said, put it somewhere you're not going to hit it. For me, I like to put it on the bind button up on the top of the transmitter where I really have to reach for that in flight to hit it. But when you push that button, the parachute does come out. One thing I will say, between a lot of flights, make sure that the strings for the parachute do not get tangled up. If you ever go to let the parachute out and you see that one of the strings has become entwined in there, fix that before you fly it again. Because if it has that tanglement, the parachute will come out, but it won't open sometimes. So that's something you need to watch between flights. If you get a tangle, fix that right away. The other thing I want to talk about right here while we're talking about the parachute, this model does have reverse thrust right out of the box. You need to choose when you're landing if you're going to use the parachute or the reverse thrust. Do not use them in conjunction. If you have the parachute out and you go to full reverse thrust, you will ingest the parachute into the motor. And it is a mess to untangle that out of the motor, and it tears it up. Trust me, I learned this one from experience. So just pick one or the other before you go out to fly. If the parachute's out, do not activate the reverse thrust the entire time. I'm telling you right now, you will suck that parachute in. Now as we move back a little bit further, another really cool thing, I can't believe they actually modeled all this way, but you actually have full flying rudders. So just like we've seen in a lot of other aircraft that have full flying stabilizers, now we actually have the rudders that do it on the SR-71, just like the real aircraft. This is so cool looking when you're taxiing around on the ground and you see those 2 big rudders moving. Really a nice touch from Freewing on this one. Now at the front of each of those rudders, you actually have an armored piece that goes all the way up the leading edge of those rudders to keep them looking brand new and perfect. I've actually flipped this over and set it on the table several times setting on these, and you don't have a single ding up there because they're plastic cladded. Now as we move back a little bit further, at the very back section of the aircraft, there is a magnetic tail cone where you can pop that on and off for transportation also. And in case you were to strike this sticks out the furthest to the aircraft when you're coming in at a high angle attack. You hit this and knock it off, you can get a replacement one, or just pop this back on. It normally just kind of pops off if you hit it instead of actually breaking. Now let's move to the bottom section of the aircraft. You can see up on the front, we still have that removable nose cone, and as we move back, we're gonna come to the nose gear assembly. Now what you can see is it has servo-driven nose gear doors. You have the dual front wheels to simulate the real aircraft. They are painted black. The entire front end of this aircraft actually has black paint on it. Pretty darn neat how they're simulating the landing gear on this one. You also have the 2 light pots up on the front that are super easy to see even in the daytime as the aircraft's coming in to land. You're gonna notice these things pointing at you coming in. There's also the little bar behind the landing gear itself that pops in and out of the fuselage whenever you put the gear up and down. And then there's actually 2 little NACA ducts right there by the landing gear. They're gonna help bring air into the fuselage to keep the battery bay cool. You're also gonna notice all the decals on the bottom of the aircraft right now. Now, depending on which aircraft scheme you choose of the 3, these are gonna vary on it. As we move back a little bit further, you're gonna see the next of the nav lights on the bottom. This is a strobing nav on the bottom. And then you can see the 2 screws that are used to take that front section off of the aircraft. As we move back further, you're gonna now come to the main landing gear. At this point, I have the gear doors out in the scale look of the SR-71. They actually hang down on the real aircraft, but with just the flip of a switch on top of your blue box, you can choose whether you want them deployed with the gear out or closed with the gear out. So for customers that are afraid of breaking these off and hitting them on anything, when you're landing in the grass or anything like that, you can actually close them up. Now you'll also notice that the landing gear themselves are painted black right out of the box, which is a really nice little touch. And then the gray wheels. These were specifically designed just for the SR-71 model. And you'll also see that the hubs of the wheels themselves are a special wheel just for the SR-71 to really give it that full size scale look of the SR-71. Now, while we're right here beside the gear, you also have the 2 cheater holes for your EDFs and the fan access panels. All you need to do is remove the 3 screws to open either side up. We know a lot of customers are probably getting in here to put in their afterburner, so there's where your access is to do that. As we move back on the aircraft, you're now going to see this special control horn that was developed just for this model. In testing, the single post wasn't strong enough for this aircraft. So these were designed specifically for the SR-71 to have the dual post with your ball link clevis embedded in between them with a bolt through them with locking nuts on the other side. These are the strongest control horns to ever be put on any Freewing model. They are glued and have 2 plates that screw together to sandwich the actual control surface between the 2 plates. Now, speaking of the servos in the back, you also have plates on each one of them, so if you need to replace a servo, you simply unscrew the 2 screws, and then you can actually slide the servo out without needing to take any kind of glue out or anything like that. These are pocketed into these little panels and made to be replaceable if you ever have an issue. Now, actually propelling this model through the air are counter-rotating 70mm 12-blade EDFs. This makes for smoother and straighter takeoff. Spinning those 12-bladed fans is a 2957 2210 kV in-runner motor. Driving the EDF units are 2 80-amp ESCs with reverse thrust. And the battery connector on it is an EC5. Now, as far as the channel count on this aircraft goes, you need a channel count of 8 to use all the features of the SR-71. If you're okay living without the parachute, you can do 7. And if you're okay without using the parachute or reverse thrust, you can do 6. Now, although this is a delta wing aircraft, you do not use the delta wing mix in your radio. You're gonna set this up just like a standard aircraft where you plug your ailerons, your elevator, and your rudder all into their own channels, and then all the mixing in the aircraft is actually done through the blue box. Now, as far as dual rates and expo goes, for my top rate on my ailerons, I have 100% throw with 30% expo. For my first cut, I have 70% throw with 20% expo. And for my final cut, I have 50% rate with 20% expo. I will tell you, the SR-71 roll rate is pretty high on this aircraft. So be ready for that on your first few flights. Now, on the elevator, I actually really never cut this. I run it at 100% throw. I think most customers are gonna need that authority to help rotate, and I do run 25% expo. If it's a little too touchy for you, you might make an 80% cut, but I really don't recommend going much lower than that because you need the authority to help this aircraft rotate and to hold it into the high alphas for the landings. Now, for the rudders, I don't run a dual rate. I just run them at 80% throw with 31% expo. Any more than that, it's a ton of throw on those rudders, and I just feel like it really overdrives the model in the air if you've got too much. So guys, let's get into actually flying the SR right now. The first thing I'm gonna tell you is you need to fly this model big. And what I mean by that is when you get it up into the air, it's gonna be your natural instinct to try and kind of muscle this guy around, pull it in close, keep it tighter into you. The problem is when you start really pulling a lot of elevator in your turns, you're gonna scrub a ton of speed because the aircraft is kind of gonna mush through the sky. What you wanna do is fly a larger pattern and keep this thing on step. It takes it a minute to get up to speed, whereas if you'll just keep it at speed, you can serve a lot of energy. Now that being said, you can also slow the SR-71 down very easily. For customers that are coming from like an F-16 or Eurofighter, this aircraft flies very similar in that respect. You will be able to do high alpha. Once you get done with your pass, just make sure you let it fly out a little bit to get its speed up before you start trying to pull it around in the turns. As far as landing and takeoff is concerned, like I said, if you have a lot of experience with Delta Wing aircraft, F-16s, the Eurofighter, the J-10, any of that kind of stuff, you're gonna really be successful with this aircraft. When you're coming into land, you kind of set your angle of attack and your sink rate is established. You're gonna use throttle more than you're gonna use elevator to actually bring this aircraft into land. And you'll see it in a lot of the videos where I have the nose up at a high angle of attack and I'm controlling my descent rate with throttle with this aircraft. Till you get it down right above the ground, then you can add a little bit of flare and it comes in just as gentle as can be. Now, as far as the aerobatics of the SR-71 are concerned, it's really not an aircraft you're gonna be trying to yank around and do a lot of stuff with, but I mean, for loops, rolls, standard aerobatics can be performed with this aircraft, but that's not really where it shined. This one wants to be going fast, it wants to be looking good out at the field. It's a scale bird, so honestly at first, probably fly it that way and then experiment more as it goes on. Well, pilots, this is the all-new Twin 70 SR-71. I'm so excited to see this come to market. I know this is a dream plane for a lot of our customers, and I can't wait to see a lot of you guys start getting them. As always, whether it's air, land, or sea, you can get it right here at motionrc.com. Hit that subscribe button if you're new, and until next time, we'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.